Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. Let's begin.
This morning, in an extremely rare and potentially revealing move, a judge has ruled the 12 grand jurors who heard evidence in the Breonna Taylor case are free to speak publicly. So far, 2 have chosen to stay anonymous, but according to their lawyer, are willing to talk.
They wanted to contribute to the truth and transparency of this proceeding for the benefit of the whole community.
3 officers carried out the raid on Taylor's apartment back in March, one charged with wanton endangerment for shots that entered a neighboring apartment. But the grand jury did not indict any of the officers in Taylor's death. Now, in a bombshell statement, one of those jurors writes, questions were asked about additional charges, and the grand jury was told there would be none because the prosecutors didn't feel they could make them stick. Adding, the grand jury didn't agree that certain actions were justified, nor did it decide the indictment should be the only charges in the Breonna Taylor case. Tamika Palmer is Breonna Taylor's mother.
So when you first read that statement, was that surprising to you?
Not at all. There's no way that, in my opinion, that he could have presented all those facts and nothing came from that.
Use of force.
In a statement, Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron writes, "It was my decision to ask for an indictment on charges that could be proven under Kentucky law. Indictments obtained in the absence of sufficient proof under the law do not stand up." Cameron has said the officers were justified in shooting because Taylor's boyfriend, Kenneth Walker, fired first, wounding an officer. Walker said he thought it was a home invasion and that officers never announced themselves, but police say they did. Now the officer who was hit is speaking out for the first time.
It's not a race thing like people want to try to make it to be. It's not. This is a point where we're doing our job and return fire. This is not us going hunting somebody down. This is not kneeling on a neck.
Now Taylor's family demanding a special prosecutor take over the case.
I hope to have this thing start over because it's been done wrong from the very beginning.
Now, Lenita Baker, an attorney for the Taylor family, says that they have started the process of officially requesting that Cameron be removed from the case and a special prosecutor take his place. Meanwhile, Daniel Cameron says in a statement that while he disagrees with the judge's decision to let the jurors speak publicly, he will not appeal.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Black World TV, the new black media. Black, by popular demand. So, police major who oversaw the Breonna Taylor drug raid unit is being investigated. Her name is Major Kimberly Burbrink. That's Major Kimberly Burbrink. So a Louisville police major who oversaw the unit that sent officers to Breonna Taylor's home the night she was fatally shot is the subject of an internal police investigation. Now, before I continue, you would have to question, why is the police officers held accountable for their fake warrant? Why is the judge not being held accountable for issuing a warrant without even investigating or knowing all the details, as she's stated already that maybe she's made an error? And yes, Judge, you did make a fatal error, acknowledging and authorizing a no-knock warrant based on information that you didn't even substantiate. But I digress. The department's Professional Standards Unit opened an investigation this week into Major Kimberly Burbrink, the commander of the Criminal Interdiction Division, the Courier-Journal reported. Burbrink has been placed on administrative reassignment, as if that's important to us. What's important to us right now is justice for Breonna Taylor and her family. We don't care about some white woman who you guys are pointing the fingers at, showing that she too was incompetent. You need to be looking yourself in the face as you guys all try to put her under the bus. You need to be held accountable yourselves, starting from the top. We're looking at the judge. We're looking at the police chief. We're looking at all the officers involved in this case. You guys can't just point your finger at a major Kimberly Burbrink and make us think that it's all her fault. We know whose fault it is. Starting with Daniel Cameron, the so-called black attorney general. And he should be investigated himself. Attorney General Daniel Cameron should be investigated for the crimes he has committed. He is covered for rogue, foul police officers. He is covered for them. He has obstructed justice. He has aided in the tampering of evidence in different ways. I know you guys look at semantics and you guys say, oh, well, he didn't touch any of the evidence. No, he tampered with evidence in many different ways. Understand where I'm coming from for you dumb idiots. And he's perjured himself many times. So, obstruction of justice, tampering with evidence, perjury. What else? But I digress. So, the department declined to answer questions about the probe of Burbrink, which was initiated at the request of Acting Chief Yvette Gentry. The newspaper reported that the department's investigative file released this month included a report accusing Burbrink of, listen to this, pressuring and cross-examining investigators who were probing the shooting. In other words, she was acting like internal affairs almost. You know, doing the job that they never do. I'm going to repeat that. She was doing the job of internal affairs, doing the job that they never do. But I digress. So Burbrink was allowed to attend a May video call. Now listen to this, a video call to update department leaders about the Taylor case, even though investigators, quote, voiced concern. Voiced concern. So again, in order to cover some of their, mistakes, they didn't even want Kimberly Burbrink, the person who was in charge of, she was the commander of the Criminal Interdiction Division. They didn't even want her on the phone call. I find that highly suspicious. Again, because they're trying to hide and cover up things. They didn't like the fact that she was asking questions. They didn't like that she was acting like internal affairs. The police departments hate that. That's why it's a joke when we hear white people talk about, oh, they're going to investigate themselves. The internal affairs is going to investigate. You guys are full of shit when you guys even put that out there for people, because we know what time it is. We're not stupid. You are for thinking that we are, but we're not stupid. Again, you're stupid for thinking that we are. But I digress. So it goes on to say that the report said when investigators pointed out inconsistencies in Brett Hankinson's statement to investigators after the Taylor shooting, Burbrink, quote, took opposition with investigators and requested investigators to list the inconsistencies. Hankinson, a former Louisville police detective, was fired in June and faces 3 counts of wanton endangerment for shooting at the Taylor's neighbor's apartment the night of the narcotics raid. Taylor was fatally shot March 13 by Louisville officers carrying a narcotics warrant, a no-knock narcotics warrant, based on the suspicion that an ex-boyfriend might have used her apartment to stash drugs or cash. None were found in her home. You see the incompetency of their surveillance. They claim that they had her under surveillance, didn't know half of the things that's going on at all. This is the police department, though, that we're talking about. The Louisville, it's a joke. So many people's heads should roll in the Breonna Taylor execution and murder. So many heads. But again, Attorney General Daniel Cameron should be number one to start with, and then the rest follow. Don't just punish the black man in this situation, because you know white racists and racism, they love to do that, and that's why they have him in that position, by the way, to be able to use him as the fall guy if necessary, and that's exactly what they're doing. So don't just punish the black guy. No, white supremacist, non-supremacist system, you rotten to the core, filthy, disgusting trash. You make sure you start from the top, and then you get all the rest involved with the Breonna Taylor execution and murder case. Because this reminds me so much of Mark Fuhrman and the O.J. Simpson trial, when Mark Fuhrman went in and tainted the evidence, and then you white folks wondered how come O.J. got away with it, if you want to call it that. So I find this this case is so filthy disgusting, and I know people are mad. This officer that got up on CNN or in the news media, why is he even talking? Daniel Cameron tried to shut up the jurors, but has no problem with these filthy, disgusting police officers who are not being held accountable. He has no problem with them getting their big heads up on TV trying to justify why they should stay out of jail. We don't want to hear it. We want punishment. Do you guys not understand what justice looks like? We want punishment. So this police officer who got up on this show, I only caught a little bit of it. He tried to guarantee that Breonna would be alive today if we didn't allow so much time when we knocked on the door. Utter bullshit. Utter bullshit. You guys can't even get your lies straight. You can't even. And then when you guys shot her and you knew she was shot and laying in her apartment, none of you gave her aid to try to keep her alive. None of you. You were all a problem. So I'm going to go over this again. Obstruction of justice, tampering with the evidence, perjury, how about corruption, abusing your oath. Daniel Cameron, you have abused your oath. Abusive of power. That's what you're guilty of. And then lastly, the body cams. What the hell? Body cams. You had them, but someone decided they weren't necessary. That's bullshit. It should be a law. Since we spend millions of dollars giving you police officers those body cams, when you're found not using them, you should be charged accordingly. That is bullshit. So, lastly, please give this video a like and a share. I'm going to end it off here. I'm going to leave a link in the description. Peace out.